Hello, my name is Rodolfo Ragonesi. I'm a lawyer practicing in Malta, and I am the legal spokesman for two organizations. Recently, 60 persons who are citizens on the Maltese Islands filed a constitutional case here in Malta to challenge a number of draconian measures that have been issued by the authorities here in relation to the management of the COVID-19 outbreak. We filed this constitutional case in collaboration with a legal firm here, Azzopardi Borch and Associates, and yesterday we had the first sitting. And from here on, we will be working on submitting all our evidence, and in the meantime, we will be keeping both the persons who have filed the case as well as the citizens of Malta up to date with all the information and the documentary evidence that we are introducing and filing in court, so that the citizens of Malta and people beyond our shores would have the possibility to follow our case and the arguments that we are making. I'd like to speak to you a bit about why we have introduced this case here in Malta. It's because we felt that a number of these measures have been extremely draconian, unreasonable, unscientific, heavy-handed, and therefore they have been infringing on people's human rights, such as the rights of freedom of movement, to travel outside the Maltese Islands, to travel to Gozo or from Gozo to Malta, the rights to practice your own sports when clubs were closed down. Of course, everyone knows that sports are extremely healthy and keep you healthy. It's not scientific to close down sports clubs, and so on and so forth. There's another major issue which relates to the freedom that people have to choose whether to take vaccines, in this case the COVID-19 vaccines. A year ago, we were told by the government that these would not be imposed, they would not be obligatory or mandatory, and today we know that it's anything but the case. Because by mandatory, it doesn't mean you pass a law saying you have to take it, but if you pass other laws saying if you don't take it, you can't go to your graduation ceremony, you can't go abroad, you can't come back unless you quarantine, or your quarantine has to be longer than someone who's been vaccinated. You can't go to mass events. That basically is limiting your options. That is what we call at law coercion, duress. I'm telling you, no, you don't have to do something, but if you don't, these are the repercussions. And that is what is known as coercion, and that is illegal. So the issues that we are raising are all to do with whether these are reasonable decisions or not. There have been measures regarding the use of masks in the Maltese Islands. The World Health Organization, which is already very extreme in the guidelines they have been issuing regarding COVID-19 management, but when you see the measures taken in Malta, they were even more extreme than those that were being recommended by the World Health Organization with relation to masks. The WHO says that you can recommend the use of masks if people are indoors in a crowded space and they cannot maintain a distance of 1 meter. But in Malta, this got translated into you have to keep a distance of 2 meters, not 1 meter. And you have to wear masks not just indoors when you can't distance 2 meters, but everywhere, even outdoors. Even if you are walking alone in woodland, in the countryside, on the beach. Even on the beach. Imagine that. And there was no restriction, even on the beach, as to the use of masks. It was so ridiculous and absurd that if you don't challenge these things, you are saying, listen, my government can impose anything. It doesn't matter how unreasonable it is, and I will just comply. It doesn't matter what my fundamental rights might be, what the Constitution might say about protecting my rights, I will just comply. Because how many times were the public health authorities questioned on the use of masks in beaches, for example? Regarding the laws as they stood, you had to wear a mask on the beach. But then when do you take it off? When you go in the water? Because the law doesn't say if you go in the water you don't have to wear a mask. And if you take it off before going into the water, where do you put the mask? You place it on your towel, but then you have to walk from your towel to the sea. It's so absurd. There are so many regulations that are absurd, such as you could not congregate together with more than 5 people, 6 people, and then it became 4 people, and then it came 2. Where is the science behind this? There is an issue of discrimination. You cannot discriminate between persons who choose to be vaccinated and persons who do not choose to be vaccinated. You cannot have regulations and claim they are reasonable. If you tell people those who are living in Malta can't go to Gozo, those who are living in Gozo can't go to Malta, unless it's for work, where is the science behind that? Why were you restricting people's movements where they have a right to go anywhere, even beyond their own countries? You restrict them when it comes to traveling, and then you even restrict them going to Gozo when their options have been so reduced. Where is the science behind that? Why is that reasonable? If people do not question these things and they take everything for granted, that is opening the road to tyranny. Tyranny can take various forms, and what we are seeing is a medical form of tyranny. Because if things are not making sense, they are not reasonable, they are not scientific, they are extreme, they are affecting people's rights, these things need to be challenged. And in Malta, many people have chosen not to challenge, others have chosen to challenge, and this is the basis of our constitutional case. It's something that is important to note is that this is not the first case which is being made in Europe. Many cases have been made, many cases have been won. So this is not a first. Many judges in countries across our waters have specifically confirmed that a number of these measures in those respective countries have been illegal, unconstitutional, extreme, unnecessary, etc. In this court case we have presented in August, we had our first sitting yesterday, and the bulk of our evidence has already been submitted, the documentary evidence. We are now going to continue by submitting testamentary evidence and bringing a number of experts, including medical scientists and other experts, in order to supplement the documentary evidence we have already submitted. We are planning to keep the citizens of Malta and Gozo informed of the proceedings of the court case by uploading all the documentary evidence onto our websites, and that would allow people to have direct access to first primary sources, direct information, rather than second-hand information, maybe from media that interpret things differently or mention one thing while not mentioning another, and so on and so forth. So people would have the ability to go onto our own media platforms and get all the information that the court itself is being given, and that would allow people to understand the nature of this case and to see and to decide also for themselves and to pass judgment even for themselves on whether the arguments we are making make sense or do not make sense, whether they are based on science, whether they are based on law or not. So we are inviting the citizens of Malta to participate in this respect by following all the scientific and legal evidence that we are presenting in the court. Thank you very much. I'd like to conclude by saying that we will follow up on all the developments as we progress throughout the case, so that we can keep the citizens of Malta and Gozo up to date with all these developments. Thank you.